Hello and welcome to episode 1103 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Tuesday, October 4th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm sad.
You're sad.
There's 2 days left in the regular season. How can I not be sad?
But then we get playoff baseball,
I know.
baby.
I'm very excited for the playoffs, but you know it's different than the everyday grind of the regular season. I am ready to decompress. I am ready to, take some time here in October, breathe, get back into it in November. At the same time, I'm still lamenting the end of the regular season. I love the daily grind, but I'm very excited for this playoff. We haven't gotten much by way of playoff chases. Everything's been kind of settled, which is okay. Obviously, it's fun when things matter down the stretch, but we haven't gotten as much of that. But I think it's going to be made up for with a great playoff. I think. Can you name a team right now that's going to make the playoffs that you really think has no chance to win it? Like no chance. See, I actually think they have a strong chance. That when people ask who the sleeper is, that's the team I keep saying, because they can hit, because they can hit more than they've been able to hit in recent years, while still having good pitching.
I mean, especially with the expanded playoffs, like anything's possible.
Even the Phillies, yes, their defense sucks, but they have two aces. They have two aces, and they have some brilliant hitters. They have a lot of power hitting too, which can go cold, but it's also that catch up fast because they can hit the homers. So even a team like that's a little bit flawed. I can see them winning.
Plus Kyle Gibson.
I hate him so much. He ruined my season.
He's legitimately going to cost you.
I know.
Probably a title.
Not a title. Stop.
I'm going to do the math on it.
And you can do the math on it,
and just give you a league average pitcher. And I wonder if title.
I truly don't believe it's going to be a title, but it's going to probably be a cash spot. He put up a 9.73 ERA in September. That's devastating in 28 2/3. Just 4 mega duds, 1 gem and 1 mediocre. Both of those were against Miami. The schedule was tough. People probably asking, well, why'd you start him, you stupid idiot? It was kind of out of my hands. I had to spam starters with wins and Ks, and I didn't have better options than him. Well, it turns out I did, but
you just didn't realize
until after the fact, right? Like Trey Jameson dominating the Dodgers. Okay, how was I supposed to know? JP Sears dominating the Mariners, like things like that. So it is probably going to cost me a cash spot, though. We'll see. We still have a couple days, but today we're going to talk about some second half fall-offs, which Kyle Gibson would probably be a part of it. Not that he had a great first half, but because his second half was so bad. But we're going to talk hitters today. Oh, we didn't go Friday, by the way. I had to be out of town. I was going to be out of town Thursday and everything was going to be set. No problem. Ended up getting pushed to Friday. That's why we didn't have a pod. We will still do the topic that we were supposed to do for Friday, either this week or next. I think we'll figure it out, but we will have a pod this Friday.
We should probably do a playoff preview of some sort on Friday.
We can do, because people play playoff fantasy too. So if people want to do that,
I'm probably going to do the NFBC.
Me too. Keep that itch. Keep scratching that itch for a few more weeks. But we're going to talk about second half fall-offs from the hitter realm. Guys that took major tumbles. Are you worried? Are you concerned? Are you going to still draft them? Will it create a discount, et cetera, et cetera? But before we get into those 11 players, we were starting to bat this around offline, but I didn't want you to answer before we got online to waste all your good stuff for the pod. Shohei Ohtani, having a great season. We know that. Even coming into the year, I think most people saw him as a hitter almost exclusively, with the pitching as a little bonus, maybe. Has he been more valuable as a hitter or pitcher this year? Now, I know what he's been statistically. We'll get into that. We can look at the Razzball Player Rater. But in terms of philosophically and the way you manage your team and the way hitting has been more plentiful on the waiver wire because of the NLDH, has he not been more, or where has he been more valuable to you for Ohtani?
So I think you said before, what is he, the 13th hitter and the 7th or 9th?
Fifth pitcher.
The fifth pitcher?
Yeah. So from the data, it says hit pitcher, but
you roster a lot more hitters than you do starters.
True.
And so I would assume that mathematically it would come out. I mean, and someone will have the numbers in terms of how much money has been earned from either
Wouldn't
spot.
That make his impact more at pitching, though, because he's one of 9?
I mean, and really one of 7 because most teams are rostering at least a few closers. Probably.
I mean, the answer is no on the Razzball player rater, $23.40 as a starter, $30.10 as a hitter.
Yeah, I would think. I think it comes down to like a contextual question, like you were kind of framing at the beginning, which is pitching has been so disastrous this year, especially at the bottom end, that he probably has been more valuable individually to each team. Maybe earn more money as a hitter, but probably been more impactful as a pitcher for people. Obviously, depending on how you used him. But I mean, I think it really begs the question, like, is Ohtani, and this is a conversation I had with Dave McDonald on the FWFB pod months ago. Should Ohtani be the number 1 overall pick next year in leagues where you can't use him, in a daily moves, like in a weekly lineup or NFBC style where you can, switch, hitters, bi-weekly and pitchers weekly.
Yeah.
Should he be the number 1 overall pick? I
think you can make a case for it.
Yeah, I think you make the case. I'd have a really hard time doing it, to be honest. I mean, I just
because if you're using him as a hitter, it is a DH and it is util, and it's like you can work around that, but covering that spot off rip.
I think one of the arguments that people don't make enough is that you get an extra spot on your roster, pretty much. Like he is, instead of like, let's say you got a 7-man bench, and usually you want a roster with 4 hitters and 3 pitchers. You now have one guy who can, operate as both a hitter and pitcher, and then add an extra bench guy to bolster whatever you're weaker at. Like, I think, to be honest, like if you think about it logically, he probably is the number 1 player in fantasy, even in weekly leagues, in spite of the somewhat headache. It's like a gold-plated problem, though. Like,
that's a good way to put it, gold-plated problem, because it is tough to like decide what to do.
Like, which greatness am I going to take this week?
Exactly. I'm curious for anybody out there that shifted mid-season and saw him as a hitter coming in. You were rostering him as a hitter for the first month, 6 weeks, but then you pivoted to the pitching. Even if it was later in the season, I'm curious if teams that did that and it caused a rally. So if that was you, if you were like, I gotta make this Ohtani guy a pitcher, you put him in your rotation and then shot up the standings. Obviously, it wouldn't just be based off of him, but I'm curious on people that had.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people did, because you got so much goodness from the hitting. You probably were ahead in hitting, and then were able to, or vice versa, right?
And you find hitting again, like with the NLDH. That was the primary reason. You could just find more hitting week to week. Pitching was not as widely available if you were streaming, mostly in 15s, but that all trickles down too in 12s and 10s. And I just think Ohtani probably better off as a pitcher on most squads. And, I think I was saying toward the end of draft season, like he should be more of a top 5 pick, and he was going mid to late first round for Ohtani. I think he's a top 3 pick next year. You don't have to take him number 1. I'm not saying he has to be the slam dunk 1. I think I'm still taking Trey Turner. But Ohtani's right there for me. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question becomes how, and I know what your answer is going to be, is kind of like, you don't predict injuries, but he's had a Tommy John before. And there just has to be, and I don't know how to quantify it, but there has to be like an inherent extra added risk for a guy who plays both. Like, it just, like, I mean, it's amazing to me he's made it through a full season this year without any real injury issues. I mean, there was that, like, I think there was like an arm fatigue thing earlier on in the season, but like other than that, like, and he didn't miss any starts. Like, he's been amazing and unreal, but like, it's like, can the human body do this, or is he just a unicorn? Like, I don't know. Like, I have this overwhelming fear, and it's supported by absolutely nothing. So, but I just have this overwhelming fear that a guy can't do what he's doing long term. Like, he's just too good. And maybe the long term is 3 or 4 years down the road. Eventually his body just breaks down because he's putting too much strain on his body. but I just worry about that. And am I being unreasonable? Am I reading too much into it? Like I don't
No,
know.
I mean, I think when you are doing that much, there is some added risk for sure with Ohtani because he is doing the hitting and the pitching. But, it is so hard to predict injury. I think his is heightened. And if you don't want to take Ohtani number one overall, sure, I get that. But man, the production, two years now, and he's been a great hitter throughout 2020 from the 44 games. Who gives a crap? Was the only time that we've seen any sort of kinks in his hitting. And he didn't really pitch in 2020 either. I think he threw an inning. And then obviously he didn't pitch 2019 because he was hurt. He was hitter only. But he's just such a great player that I'm willing to take the shot. I really am. I'm willing to take that risk and see what's up with Ohtani.
Who are your top three? You said you take him top three. So Ohtani's, let's say, third. Trey Turner first. Is J Ram one?
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say J Ram Trey, J Ram, Jose Ramirez, Ohtani.
Okay.
I think that's the three right now. And I will say though, kind of want to see what happens with Trey if he goes to a new team. You know how I feel about guys. I follow that smart system.
I assume they're going to.
I think so too. But with Cole and Wolfman, they always talk about the first year of a big deal. Pitcher was always the main concern for me there. They expand it to everybody, and I agree. I don't love that. Give him a transition year. We saw it more recently with Lindor. It was a trade, but he also got the big deal. He needed a year adjustment. It happens.
I just don't know who else is going to give Turner the contract.
Well, and we've talked about this just the other day. I think about the Dodgers having money come off the books. Yeah. I don't see how they don't bring him back too, which is why right now I'm operating as though Trey's my number one, J Ram's my number two, Ohtani's my number three.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the thing. Like, it's going to be such like a top heavy first round that give me pick 6, 7, or 8, and I'm going to be pretty happy. Like, there's so many guys.
Get Kyle Tucker in the middle of the draft or something. In the middle
Julio
of the
Rodriguez. There's just so many.
Let me ask you about Julio real quick before we get into these second half fallers. It was a concerted effort to slow him down on the bases for his health. How much of a concern is that for next year when you consider that he went 21 for 26 in the first half and 4 for 6 in the second half for J-Rod? And again, that was purposeful by them. Yes, he played 50 fewer games, but they explicitly said, we are slowing him down. We want to take care of him.
Yeah, I'm not as worried. Maybe that. And I think, just the potential of a sophomore slump maybe bumps him down to the back end of the first round, but I still think he's back into the first round type of guy. It's just the upside is so great with him. I just don't know how you don't, if he's sitting there, like how you don't. Luis Robert was still going in the back end of the first round.
Yeah.
In spite of his injury issues so I
have a hard time passing J-Rod too. And it's not like he's not going to get any steals either. Yes, they might slow him down again in the second half or even in the first and be like, okay, don't go too crazy. But I still think he can get himself, even if he's like an 18 to 20 steal guy instead of trying to chase down 30 the way we thought he was going to get this year, which was 25. Well, let's take 10 off. What if he's only 15 steals next year, but 35 homers? Do I really care?
Isn't that better than or just same as Kyle Tucker? We're just saying top half of the first, so and potentially better with I think he's at least back into the first round. But this again, the reason why, if I have a choice, if you do KDS, you get to pick your draft slot. I think I want to be in the middle to back end of that, first round. I think this is going to be next 2023 is going to be a year where there's just so much talent at the top end that give me 2 guys in the top 25 as opposed to 1 guy in the top 25.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The talent is rich. We've seen a boon. I don't know if any of these guys will be involved though, because the second half fall-offs for these guys were sharp. I am curious how you feel about them now and how much the bad second half changes your outlook on them. We've got 11 players that had some pretty substantial fall-offs here. Let's start with the single biggest fall-off if the qualifier was 200 plate appearances. If you get to 150, which is what I initially ran it on, G-Man, Choi, Victor Caratini have a little bit bigger drops. But if it's 200 plus plate appearances, as the threshold. CJ Cron, a colossal fall off. And I'm not hearing much chatter about it, surprisingly. Remember, he was the talk of the town in the first half, just absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. Remember when nobody could hit home runs but him for the first few months? Like, oh, power's way down, everything sucks. CJ Cron's like, oh, is the ball different? Because I'm out here crushing 13 homers in the first 2 months. Justin, he went from a 134 WRC plus in the first half to 52 in the second half. The home runs dropped from 21 to 8. And yes, it's not equal halves. I grant that. I'll extrapolate his 8 homers to the same 381 plate appearances from the first half. It only gets him to 12. So you're still -9. He's hitting 199 in the second half after 298 in the first. What the hell happened to CJ Cron?
I don't know. Like, there's nothing in the numbers that like really jump out to me as like, hey, this is why he fell off.
It's quite a dip.
I mean, I guess like, part of it was he was just running really, really hot in the first half.
He didn't just come back to, solid old CJ Cron. He went to dog crap.
Well, okay,
199, 263, 345.
In the first half, he had a 358 BABIP.
Okay, that's not going to sustain.
In the second half, he had a 236 BABIP.
So he literally went guardrail to guardrail. It was far too high in the first half, and 236 is too low for a guy like him too. For Cron.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that he's hit 8 home runs, because like I haven't seen like a massive change in his launch angle or hard hit percentage, or his contact rates have actually been better in the second half. Like, he's got an 89% zone contact rate. I think he's getting unlucky in the second half.
It sounds like it with the 236.
Yeah. So like, I think it's just a matter of, he was running really well in the first half, and he got the shit end of the luck in the second half. And I think so the kind of the true talent is somewhere in between. We're talking about a guy who's probably like a 250 hitter with 30 home runs, which is at the end of the year is going to be what his line is. So like, I think if people start freaking out about, look at the second half drop off, and he dips because of it, I'll buy that dip. Like, I will. I mean, he's still in Colorado. He's a good hitter. I think the question on Cron is always health. Like, is he going to be able to play enough games? And this year he has. So like, why would I be worried about it for next year? I think he's a fine pick at first base.
Yeah, CJ Cron was the 12th hitter drafted off the 12th first baseman, off the board in the main event. Actually, hang on. Is this main events? There were not 1,300 main events. Please hold. There were 47 main events. He was the 8th first baseman in the main event. And now he is the 7th first baseman on the player rater. So he basically panned out to what was expected, despite the disparate halves. In Roto, all you care about is the bottom line. It feels like it's more impactful that he wasn't doing great for you in the second half because of how good the first half was. But you still have to go off the bottom line that you projected, and you were hoping for 30-100, and he's at 29-102 with a 259 average for CJ Cron. So I'm with you. I think in the end, he's been pretty good. Let's hype up this second half fall off so we can try to build a discount. No, I'm kidding. But I will spend the offseason saying do not panic about this second half fall off.
I'm not worried about first half, second half split with him. I'm more concerned with the home road splits. Like, he's just, he has just been bad. 22 of his 29 home runs have been at home.
Yeah, pretty stereotypical.
And so like,
guy here for Cron.
You just want to be able to, when they have, away series, to be able to sit him for someone else. But I think other than that, like, I think he's fine. Like, if people start getting concerned, like like I said, I will buy that dip.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. If we see Cron fall out of the top 10, like I said, he was 8 in the main event. If he is going as the 12th, 13th first baseman, that's a buying opportunity. Let's talk Rafael Devers, because this is getting a lot more chatter because of how stark it was and his status before that. Now, he hasn't been quite as bad in the second half, a 94 WRC plus, so just below average. But he was at a 170 in the first half, so it's a 76-point drop-off. Only 5 homers, 20 runs, 33 ribbies in the second half with a 250, 325, 392. Sub 400 slug in the second half is pretty brutal for Rafael Devers as well. What do you make of what's going on with him? And does the drop off from 22 homers in the first half to 5 in the second cause panic for you?
Oh, I
The
mean,
extrapolated total would be 8, by the way, just so we get the samples similar. But 22 to 8 is still a massive, massive, massive fall off for Devers. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, I mean, again, like I don't see a ton that I'm super worried about. Again, it's like a huge BABIP disparity, so first half BABIP 352, second half BABIP 295.
Okay. Yeah, that is pretty big. Although the 295 shouldn't be a little bit better than, because that's pretty just whatever.
Yeah, probably a little bit better. The contact rates are actually a little bit better in the second half than they were in the first.
Wow.
So like maybe it's a matter of like it just was a matter of time. Like he was getting really lucky in the first half, and I think he is what he is, like but maybe he's just a little bit below that. So like he's gonna finish the year with 30 home runs, 296. Maybe he's more of a 30 homer, 280 guy.
Sure. I'm looking at it for Devers right now, though. I'd go even further. Look at the August. It's just August. 164, 226, 289 was his line with 3 homers. He had a 173 BABIP in August. It seems like he ran ice cold for a month. Now, that doesn't fully explain the power outage, though, because he only has 2 homers in September/October. So there was still a power outage even after the August flop. But I do think this is a situation where this could get overblown and create a Devers discount that we could pounce on. Now, he was the second third baseman off the board this year as a top 20 pick. He's probably only going to drop into like the 30s or 40s at most, right, with Devers?
It kind of depends on the other guys. Like, maybe, Austin Riley will probably go ahead of him now. Machado probably goes ahead of him. J-Ram probably goes ahead of him. Does Bobby Witt Jr. go ahead of him?
That's what I was going to ask. What about Arenado? I know he's old, but
I think you can make the argument. I don't think Arenado will just because he's older.
Yeah.
But he probably deserves to. Like, I honestly think I'm probably going to be a part of the Devers fade unless the price drops too much.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think Devers. I think there's an argument Devers isn't a top 5 third baseman next year.
And it'll be a fade more due to other folks than it will be like an anti-Devers take. But I'm with you.
Yeah, I just it's third base still sucks. So like, I'm not saying like I'm going to avoid drafting Devers because I think you want one of those guys at the top of the pool. But at the same time, like I would definitely at this point, obviously not having done my off-season research yet, but at this point, if I was drafting today and there's a chance I draft next week or something like that, I would take J-Ram above him, Machado above him, Riley above him, probably Bobby Witt Jr. ahead of him. And I think there's a real argument for Arenado.
Over Devers too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're going to see where the Devers fall off lies. I think there's still going to be his core believers that aren't going to go anywhere. And I totally get that. If you're one of those people, stay the course. It makes sense. I think it really is one bad month with him. The price is going to fully dictate my interest in Devers, and I might be inclined to just wait on the position. If he comes down far enough, though, I'll be in on Devers. Let's go back to first base. Talk about Josh Bell. The trade has not worked out for him. Josh Bell was the 10th first baseman off the board this year with Washington, and of course that's a solid park to pitch in or hit in, excuse me. And then he gets he's part of the Juan Soto deal. He goes from a 149 WRC plus in the first half to just an 81 in the second half. Now, is that simple regression or something more? He's hitting 196. Yes, the BABIPs are down. Another big BABIP drop, 99-point dip. But he's hitting 196, 315, 292. The power is out as well. What are we doing with Josh Bell not in San Diego necessarily because we don't know where he's going to be. So I guess that's a big part of it too. But what's up with Josh Bell? Does this second half fall off concern you?
Another one of these huge splits between BABIPs in the first half and the second half. You've got a 333 BABIP in the first half, In the second half, he's 234. So like a huge split there. His contact rates are right around the same. He's swinging less than he did before. Like, I don't know if this was an approach change that the Padres like asked him to kind of incorporate. Hey, take more walks and don't be so aggressive in the zone. But it is not working for him.
No, it's not.
I mean, his overall swing rate just dropped from 48% to 42%. In zone, he is swinging 5% less. He's swinging outside of the zone less, which is great. Like, you want to see that, but you want to see him swinging more in the zone. So, I mean, this is a bit concerning, and he will likely not be on the Padres next year.
Josh Bell is a free agent, so we'll see. Where he lands obviously plays a big role in how people are going to feel about him. But he is now down to the 18th first baseman on the season, and his first half has not been enough to sustain him up there because he only has 17 homers at first base and 71 ribbies.
And we also have to remember too, he went from a really good hitter's park to kind of a neutral or closer to a pitcher's park in Petco.
Absolutely.
Petco seems to change every year in terms of what it actually plays like. But I think he's one of those guys where I don't want to say he doesn't have like real power, because he does. Like, you look at like when he hits the ball hard, he hits the ball hard. But like, he was definitely aided, I think, by that Nationals park. So I'm not surprised there's a little bit of a drop off. Now, if he was like, depending on where he ends up, if he drops, like if he's the 18th first baseman off the board, I'm all for that, because I mean, we know he's got 35 homer power in that bat. And like, I'll take the gamble if there's a huge drop, especially because, like I said, the contact rates didn't really change. This was I think an approach change that has been a mistake. So I would be willing to buy back in, especially if there's going to be a big discount. I think there will be a big discount.
I think so too. I don't know if he goes all the way down to 18 for Josh Bell, but looking at the guys ahead of him, there's a few that I don't think will necessarily, like Luis Arraez is here because he qualifies at first. I think you can move him off there. Ryan Mountcastle, I think it's a toss up. Ty France will be more of a second baseman. Jake Cronenworth, probably more of a middle infielder drafted as well. But if you're looking at 13th, 14th first baseman for Josh Bell, I think that's a reasonable spot to buy. Let me ask you on one guy, Josh Bell or Rowdy Tellez. Let's put Josh Bell in a more neutral site. Who are you going to go with there? Rowdy Tellez, 34 homers and a 219 average on the year.
As long as Tellez is still in Milwaukee, if and I know this seems weird, but like, Milwaukee is a cheap team. Like, I could see them try to like flip him, or it would be weird to see them non-tender him after this kind of year. But we've seen this before with the aforementioned CJ Cron, would come off a 30 home run season and then getting DFA'd.
Chris Carter.
So I think you got to go Tellez, especially because I think he will stay on that Milwaukee team and have kind of the same role this year. He seems like a fan favorite and a clubhouse favorite. So I don't know that they want to jettison a guy like him out of that locker room. So I think it's Tellez, but I think it all depends on the price. Like, the 18th first baseman off the board was Anthony Rizzo, and he went at pick 181.
So I could see Bell getting down there then.
But that was like the demarcation of a huge drop off, because the 17th first baseman, Ty France, went at 150.
Okay.
So like, the difference between the 14th first baseman and the 18th first baseman shouldn't seem like a lot, but it was 50 picks. So like, there's a huge difference, I think, for the potential on Josh Bell. Like, if he's 50 pick difference from Rowdy Tellez, give me Josh Bell every time.
I think that's fair too. Yep. If we are seeing a pick split there, I too would go Bell over Tellez. But if they're pretty close, I'm leaning Tellez. That was a guy I really like this year. I like what he's done. Obviously, the average is coming in light at 219, but I'll take the 34 homers. I was never planning on huge batting average from him anyway. And as we've stated all year, batting averages, your thresholds are lower this year. 219 is still tough, but it's not murdering your team the way previous years that absolutely would have. So that's where we're at with Josh Bell. Let's go Ketel Marte. Talk a bit about him and what he's done this year. He has a 63-point split, first half to second half, 128 down to a 65 WRC plus with 4 homers, 195 average, 257 OBP, 345 slug for Ketel Marte. Just major issues here in the second half. Obviously on the IL right now, health has been a major concern. You can probably put some blame for the second half dip on health, but you also have to acknowledge that health continues to be a problem. Sub 200 averages in August and September, 0 homers in August, just 2 in September. What do we do with a sputtering to the finish line and not even going to get there? Because again, he's on the IL, Ketel Marte.
I mean, here's the thing. I think, and this is a hard part because I mean, in the past, I've been a really, really big Marte guy for those remember when he was coming up, like I was one of his biggest fans. I was all over him when he was Seattle. But the last 3 years or so, I've been the anti-Marte guy. And it's because of the health. This is what the 4th straight season that he's finishing the year on the IL. Or pretty much ending his season early because of injury. I mean, the big differences are the big differences that we've already talked about with the other guys, right? Huge BABIP difference, really kind of buoying up his first half. And
lost Justin. Well, maybe he'll come back. This is my show now. He's talking about Ketel Marte. He's probably going to cut all this out. But if for some reason he doesn't. Oh, he's back. He's back.
I have no idea what happened there. I apologize.
That's okay. So go ahead and start over on Ketel Marte. I imagine you're going to edit around it.
Yeah, I'll edit around it. Those of you watching the video live, you get it.
You get to see the shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. So Marte, I mean, the big difference is one of the same differences that we've seen with all these other guys, right? Huge BABIP difference in the first half versus second half. 310 BABIP in the first half, a 226 BABIP in the second half. With the Statcast data looking pretty similar. Underlying skills in terms of like his contact rates look very similar. So I mean, it's really BABIP driven. I think the biggest issue is what you kind of mentioned originally, which is he has not been able to stay healthy. I mean, he's a guy that has now finished on the IL or pretty much finished on the IL each of the last 4 seasons. And I just don't know that he's the difference maker that we thought he was going to be, especially in the speed department when he's coming up. I was one of the biggest Ketel Marte fans out there, when he was in Seattle and coming up. And I think at this point, people are still dreaming on the thought that he could be the guy we wanted him to be, and not paying for the guy that he actually is.
Yeah, he's the number one. Ketel Marte is like the number one case in point that steals are a player's decision as much as anything.
Yeah,
because he's had the speed from day one and no interest in using it in that capacity. And I wonder how much of that is related to his consistent health issues as well. So he's 46 for 60 in his career. And he's been around for a while now. This is 3,303 plate appearances. And Gnostic Baseball says in the chat, let Marte be someone else's problem. And that's really where I'm at too. And that's where I was coming into the season. While I like the player, and he's another guy that I have a lot of love via MLB The Show because his cards are always awesome. So I love Ketel Marte, but I couldn't get to drafting him this year because I just felt like we're going to go through the same rigmarole again. And we did. It took a lot longer. He played 90 games last year, 137 this year, but same old, same old. And this year, all you got was a 240 average instead of a 318. So there will be a discount. I don't think it'll be steep enough for me to get back on the Ketel Marte train next year. He was the 10th second baseman off the board at pick 87 last year in the main event. Where do you think Ketel Marte goes next year? And by the way, he lost that outfield eligibility. He was second base DH only this year, so he loses that extra eligibility. What kind of price do you think he's going to look at? Is he outside the top 100?
Oh yeah, he's got to be outside top 100. I think he would have to be
29th at second base this year with that batting average.
Yeah, and second base is not going to be as bad as it was coming into this year. I think second base is going to be a little bit thicker, especially at the bottom. I think there's just interesting throws. Plus
Jimenez broke out. Brandon Drury broke out, and we'll see where he goes. If he goes to another good hitting spot, Thairo Estrada, who we talked about the other day, Ty France fully broke out. Jeff McNeil returned. Luis Arraez is building a lot of confidence for people. Josh Rojas, Nico Horner. I can keep going, but like that's the point that you're trying to say is like there's a bunch of guys down there, and they're all kind of the same. But he's in Ketel Marte's in that group now too. He's not set himself apart from that group.
Plus, if you're gonna take a shot on a bounce back guy, like wouldn't you rather take it on Whit Merrifield or Trevor Story
or Baez? Have you seen what Baez has been doing in the last month here?
LeMahieu, like Muncy, like there's just so many other guys I think that are better opportunities on the buyback than Ketel Marte. And so I agree with Gnostic Baseball. Like let it be someone else's problem. That's exactly
the right
thing. Because here's the thing, going back to your point about it being, stolen bases being a thing that are really team or player dependent. The Diamondbacks are 7th in Major League Baseball in stolen bases this year, and Marte's not running.
5 for 6, yeah.
So it's not necessarily a team thing.
No, it's a play. That's what I mean. That's why I said it's a player choice. I really think that he just isn't interested in it. Maybe he doesn't think he's good at it. I don't know what it is with Ketel Marte. I do know, or I feel confident in saying that it is a choice that he does not want to do that. All right, let's move on to the next guy here. Not as grim of a story with Alejandro Kirk. This is somewhat in the Devers category where his second half is about average. He's at a 97 WRC plus, so you're not losing your mind. But it was a 155 in the second half, or in the first half, excuse me. So it's a 58-point drop for Kirk. So it does stand out, and you will hear some narratives about it in the offseason. He's down to a 249 average, 343 OBP, 323 slug. Where hath the power gone for Alejandro Kirk? Just 3 homers in this second half. That's been the big issue. Of course, being a catcher, the thresholds are low. So he's still the 5th catcher on the season. Like, this has been undeniably a great season, but I do think we'll hear some breakdown of his second half. He went from the 10th catcher. He was 10th catcher off the board at pick 202. Obviously, that's going way up. Will he be a top 5 catcher off the board? What do you think Alejandro Kirk's breakout season does for his draft price next year, especially with a catcher boon this year, which I'm going to be writing about here soon. So stay tuned for that article. Catcher really exploded this year. How does that affect Kirk with his ugly second half, or modest second half, let's say?
Yeah, he's still 97 WRC plus.
Yeah. I don't want to overstate it.
There have been just like small declines in terms of the skills. The exit velocity is a little bit down. The contact skills are a little bit down. Still elite, especially for a catcher. He's still like a 90% zone contact guy, which is unreal for a catcher. Like, I think he's still a top 5 catcher. I absolutely think he's still a top 5 catcher. Like, he's gonna be, playing pretty regularly in that Blue Jays lineup. Dude can just flat out hit. And I think he's made a little bit of strides as a catcher this year defensively. So I think that helped. I think he's absolutely a top 5 catcher. Somebody in 2 catcher leagues you should be considering probably in the top 100 picks. And in 1 catcher leagues, like, he is probably the first guy I'm really going to start targeting. Usually I wait, but like, I think if he's like a guy who's like the 6th or 7th catcher off the board, I'm going to hammer that even in 1 catcher league. So
I think so too with Kirk. So Real Muto, Adley, Will Smith, Varsho, those 4, I think are definitely ahead of Kirk for me. For now, I'll question you on these ones: Sal Perez or Alejandro Kirk?
I think I'm going to go Kirk. It's a better team, a better, a younger, better health record, like
Better park.
better park.
Division not as difficult or that not as big of a concern anymore because you're not playing 19 games against everybody with the new schedule next year. You know, Sal Perez has been fine this year, 23.76 with a 254 average. Nobody's upset about that. He has been, despite missing the time, he's been fourth. He's actually been the fourth catcher. So, you know, if defensive points, Gnostic Baseball points out that, you know, he's played 77 games at DH, 50 at catcher. Most leagues, it don't matter with the defense. We just need him to get 20 games to qualify the next year. So I think Perez is a toss up. What about Wilson Contreras or Kirk?
Ooh,
we don't know where Contreras is going to be.
I think
right now.
I have a feeling like Wilson Contreras can be back in Chicago. Like
they didn't trade him, so
they didn't trade him. Like
that's what I'm thinking.
I mean, they didn't get much for Bryant and Rizzo necessarily. So like, what, you know, they're willing to take what they got for those guys. Like, why not trade Contreras? I think he's probably back in Chicago, which I think is a good thing for him. That's really, really close. I mean, I think you put Kirk, Wilson Contreras, William Contreras, and Sal Perez. Sean Murphy, if he gets moved, I really want him out of Oakland. Like, he just park's
brutal.
The park's brutal. The roster around him is brutal. Did you know I batted 5 games at cleanup for them? Like that.
What pisses me off though is you didn't tell me, so I didn't see any of them. I had to watch them on replay, and you had that one double, which it was a single with an error, bro. Get real. But they gave you a double. You played well, but like, I don't know why you didn't promote it. I guess you were kind of embarrassed that you were on the wrong Bay Area team. But yeah, that was awesome. You got to hit 5th for a few games there. That was dope.
So throw in Cal Raleigh, throw in MJ Melendez. So I'm gonna revert what I said about one catcher leagues. I want the last guy. Just give me the last guy. Like
it absolutely runs at least 10 deep, if not 15 deep.
I'm gonna have a list of, like, in my 10 and 12 team one catcher leagues. I'm gonna have a list of the 10 or 12 guys I like. And I'm gonna circle the last one I'm willing to take that I would feel really good about, and just wait for that. You know, unless I'm getting Real Moots at a huge discount because of stolen bases. So yeah, I like Kirk a lot, but
in one catcher, I'm taking Tyler Stevenson. Like,
I think
he's going to be on a discount because of the injuries, and I get it. I'm just going to run that back there. So I feel you on that. But 2 catcher leagues, I am going to pay, and I'm going to be in that star pool. And I'm open to getting Kirk. Do not freak out over the second half. If you see the price dropping or the narrative being shifted or shaped about that second half, let people buy into that. Lower his price as much as you can and take any discount you can get, or discount relative, because he is going up in price no matter what. Alejandro Kirk was a 200 pick 202 last year in the main event. He's going at least 100 picks higher than that, if not more. For context, Yasmani Grandal was pick 116 this past year. I think he can go a little bit higher than that, Kirk can, because he's a batting average type guy. So I think between 90 and 110 is where Kirk goes, I think. So
I'm fine paying that price. Gnostic Baseball just said he dropped me in his home league, and that he's sorry. I don't be sorry, man. You got to do what you got to do to win. Like, this is the time of year, like, you know, the last month has been the time of year where you got to make hard cuts. And if you had to cut
context too, you couldn't get ribbies. Nobody's on base when you're batting.
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Let's stay behind the dish. Talk Jonah Heim, a player that we were hyping up early in the season because he was playing very well, had a wonderful first half, still ending up with a pretty solid catching season, to be sure. We were recommending him in 2 catcher leagues, and he's the 13th catcher off the board. So even if you play 10-teamer, you're loving that. But he did go from a 121 WRC plus in the first half to just a 66 in the second half, a 174, 276, 291 slash line in the second half for Heim is pretty egregiously bad. Another BABIP guy for sure, going from 284 to 203, but the power outage as well. You can't just go off BABIP and say, oh, you know, that's all it is and move on. I mean, it's a disastrous August and September. 141 average with a 161 BABIP in August, 156, 163 in September. It just wasn't working. What happened with Jonah Heim? Was this just a bad run, or is there reasons to be concerned and maybe we fade him next year, even though the price won't be too expensive?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is a bad run. I feel like he's been trying to hit for power. Like he got this power spike, and all of a sudden, like he's trying to lift the ball. The launch angle is up, a little bit. And in that he's not making as much like good contact. So when he is trying, when he does get he's not barreling the ball. So like he makes contact in the zone. His zone contact's 89%, which is up 2% from the first half of the season. But when he's making that contact in the zone, it's not hard contact. Like the hard hit rate's down. It feels like a guy who's probably trying to press a little bit and is trying to capitalize and kind of continue the hot streak going. The hard part, like, is Garver back next year? Back healthy, though Garver never stays healthy, so maybe it's not as big of a concern. I don't think he registers as a top 12 catcher next year, but I think he's in the kind of context of like a C2, like a high-end C2. So like, even in 12 or 15 team leagues, he'd probably be like my 16, 17 catcher, a guy that I'm not actively seeking to get necessarily, but not a guy that I'm afraid to get either. Like, I think he's going to be a pretty solid guy because, like I said, Garver, it's not like we can trust Garver to stay healthy. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Rangers use Garver more as a DH than really as a catcher to try to protect his health anyway. So
let him just hit.
Yeah, so Jonah Heim, like, I think he's fine. Like, I think he's, the second half tail off sucks, but like the contact numbers are still pretty good, and I'm not super worried. Like, you're just not going to get anywhere close to what you saw in the first half. I think he's a little bit closer to that second half than he is the first.
Yeah, and I don't think the price is going to be anything egregious at all. Yeah, I think he's going to be in the 20s among catchers for Jonah Heim. So if you want to buy back, feel free to do so. You can definitely get that done. I did cut a couple names off the end of the list there just because I didn't think they were as impactful here. So we got 3 more names as we, about quarter of the hour left here. Harold Ramirez was somebody that was always kind of interesting, even when he was crushing, because he's one of those guys that, despite having the really strong WRC plus, there wasn't a ton of fantasy goodness there, but he was undoubtedly having a strong first half, during which he put up a 142 WRC plus, but he's down to 88 here in the second half, 263, 292, 350 with just 2 homers. Now, he only had 4 homers in the first half, and he was 4 homers, 3 steals, 3 for 7 on the bases, by the way. Literally got caught more than he was successful. 370 BABIP in the first half, 323 in the second half. So it is a big BABIP drop, but probably not enough to explain why he's fallen apart here. What's up with Harold Ramirez? And if you look at it, it's really just been September, because his August was perfectly solid, but he's down to a 214 average with just 1 homer in September, October. Is Harold Ramirez just a batting average guy who's always at the mercy of BABIP, or was there something here that might be a bigger breakout next year?
I mean, yes, I think that's true. I think he is kind of like an average guy. I also think that because of the injuries to Tampa Bay, they haven't been able to optimize them the way they were in the first half, like when they were super healthy, right? So he's hitting 360 against lefties this year and 280s against righties. He's meant to be kind of a lefty killer.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the depth that they had at the beginning of the season that they usually have because of all the injuries they've had this year. So
to the outfield specifically.
Mm-hmm. So you look at, like you said, he's been struggling in September. He's been playing every game in September. Doesn't matter if a right-hander's up, a left-hander's up. They don't have the ability to platoon the way they usually do. So I think that is the real issue, is that he shouldn't be playing every day versus righties, and he is, and that's dragging down the rest of his numbers.
Why are they batting him 4th, though? I know, like, lineups, you don't want to overrate it because the data says that lineup construction is not the end of the world. However, there are optimal lineups and suboptimal. Yes, you could pick them out of a hat and still have a good performance, but you can still optimize it. I just don't understand why he's.
You also just get so many more plate appearances batting that high up, and you want your better players to have more plate appearances. So
I guess that goes back to the injuries though too, because I don't know that Margot, David Peralta, Christian Bethancourt, Taylor Walls, or Jose Siri necessarily deserve the spot. So I think you're right. It's just because they're injuries and they suck.
And I'm like, he's a guy that could, like, he probably will stick around in Tampa, but they're also going to bring in a bunch of new faces. And
yes.
So who knows?
They could start costing him PT.
Yeah.
So that's Harold Ramirez. Is still going to be a late round pick. I don't think this season is going to raise his price in any real tangible way. The batting average is nice, but I don't think it's super bankable. So if you want Harold Ramirez next year, you'll still be able to get him at a pretty fair price. Let's talk Ty France. We briefly mentioned him earlier. This is another guy. Put him in the Devers Kirk category, where his second half is not disastrous, 97 WRC plus, but the batting average is down to 229, and he was at a 149 WRC plus in the first half. But then, like I said, the dip in batting average is the biggest part. 229, 287, 396 slash with 9 homers. There was a wrist injury for Ty France that certainly played a role, I think, and other than that, I think it was just kind of regression back down, because when you have a big first half like that, there really is nowhere to go but down usually, unless you're just going to have a dream season. So I'm not too worried about this one. It's another clear BABIP dip, a 106-point BABIP drop for Ty France. Is there anything more to it than that, or was it just the particularly bad August when he hit 177 with a 179? And if so, if it's not a huge issue, are you looking to buy Ty France next year?
Yeah, I think I am. They really like him, and
as they should.
Yeah, and France, I mean, like you said, it's just a huge BABIP difference. There is a little bit of, degrading of skills from the first half to the second half, but that's just because he was so elite in the first half. I mean, he had like an almost 95% zone contact, which is unheard of. So like him's dropping to 91 or 92% in the second half. 91.3 in the second half. Like, that's still really, really good. I just don't know that we're ever going to get like the monster Ty France breakout. Like, I don't think that's ever happening.
I was hoping that this was the year, but yeah, he came back to earth and he's had a great season.
I think he's just a better version than Yandy Diaz. Like, I think he is a, corner infielder type. Though I think you said second base eligibility.
He had second base eligibility this year. Let's see if he
won't. First base only next
first
year,
only. So that hurts.
Yeah.
So that second base eligibility was nice.
I think he is just a little bit better version of Yandy Diaz. And so yeah, I mean, he's probably not even a top 200 pick. I think he's a guy you pivot to if you need batting average towards the end of the draft.
I think he's still a top 200 pick. Or do you think losing the second base is going to push it? Because he was 184 last year. I think he'll still be at least in. I don't know that his draft price will drop. Right? I don't think so. I mean, he lost batting average from 291 to 275, but hit 20 homers in.
He's not going to have 400. Yeah, he's not going to. But I mean, you have to injuries. You've got to kind of factor that into what you think you can get from him. He was the 15th. He's the 15th first baseman off the board this year. 15th first baseman off the board, puts him kind of in that spot that we were talking about with Josh Bell. Like, who'd you rather have, Ty France or Josh Bell? I'm going to take Bell. Unless I need the batting average. It's probably team context, but I think I'm leaning Bell because I think the upside's greater.
Especially with the power. I can see that. I can see that. If France is cheaper than he's been in recent, like if he drops from the price that he's at this year, which was 180s, I'm definitely going to be in on that. But other than that, I think losing that second base really hurts. That's what I loved about France this year was I was putting him as my second baseman, so I didn't need nearly as much power, right? Like, you're totally fine with 20 homers from second base, but 18 or 15 to 20 homers from first base, that's a different story entirely. So that is a big hit to Ty France.
There's also, like, at first base, there's going to be guys that, like, right now aren't, like, where they're out on the player rater, is outside the top, 15, but they're clearly going to be into the top 15. Andrew Vaughn's going to be a really, really, like, trendy pick. Max Muncy should bounce back up into
Big
that
time.
top 15.
Yeah.
LeMahieu is going to bounce back up into that top 15. Jose Miranda is going to be another really trendy pick.
Yeah.
So
Jose
like,
Miranda has a Ty France vibe to him, though, doesn't he?
Yeah. He does. He absolutely does. But I think he's
But take the younger version of that.
younger. He's playing. He's also third base eligible.
He has third.
like,
Yeah.
So
Nailed it.
I think all those guys are going to jump over him. Where maybe France, I think at best France goes where he was going last year, which was 18th or 17th, 18th first baseman off the board. But I think there's potential in a lot of drafts for him to go outside the top 200, which, like I said, I'm fine with. Like, especially if I feel like my power is pretty good at first base. He would be a really interesting CI to boost their batting average because it's going to be a really good team. That Mariners team is just going to get better and better and better.
No doubt.
He has fantastic bat to ball skills. And I don't want to bury him with the idea that Ty France couldn't have that breakout season. Like, I think
Exactly.
when you have the elite bat to ball skills that Ty France does, one tweak, maybe they load the ball again. All of a sudden, like if we got a happy fun ball again, Ty France would be like one of the biggest benefactors of that.
100%. Yeah.
I think
because
that
he makes such good contact.
Yeah. So while I probably sound a little down on France, I think he is a fine pick where he's probably going to go.
Okay. I can certainly get behind. That with regards to Ty France, and I don't think that the price is going to be egregious in any way. So that way, if you do want to get in, price is going to be right for Ty France. What about this next guy, JD Martinez? Is it over for him as a premium player? And will the name value finally wear off, or will a second straight doubles title keep people interested in saying, oh, he can get back to the power because he's still crushing doubles, as opposed to the other thing, which is the power's fading, so the homers are turning into doubles, which is what I think it is. He'll be 35 next year. He wasn't bad, but he only hit 14 homers this year. Like, that is pretty rough at util from somebody like JD Martinez. He dropped from 137 WRC plus to 85 with just 5 second half homers and a 229 batting average. BABIP, again, there's been a huge drop for everybody here, 382 to 291, but there's a power outage too, so you can't just say BABIP and move on. What's up with JD, and is his power officially gone as a premier, power 25 plus home run hitter?
I think it's over. I think this is the end for JD Martinez. And now you're also talking about he's going to be a free agent. Is he even going to have a full-time role in his next spot? Is he going to have to try to go get like a Nelson Cruz type deal to try to, kind of a pillow kind of deal to see if he can prove it again? Do we want him in a new location outside of Fenway, outside of the AL East, where you get to hit in, those great parks? You look at, the thing I've said over and over and over again in this episode is there's not much difference between first half, second half. There is a big difference, like here in the contact skills. We've seen a swing strike rate go up. We saw the zone contact rate drop from 82.7% down to 78.6%. That means it's from below average, because league average is about 84%, down to like really, really bad. Like, those are really, really bad contact numbers. I think the bat has slowed down. And while he can still get a hold of one every once in a while, I think the lack of contact within the zone and just a little bit slower bat I think this may be the end. And maybe he retires. Like, maybe he just says, hey, I got my last bag. I can walk away. But yeah, if he is back, like, I think there are going to be a lot of people trying to buy like a really big dip. I don't think I'll be one of them. Like, I think he's cooked. I think this is done.
Especially with util only, because he came in this year with the outfield eligibility, which really helped JD Martinez. But he's full DH this year, 137 games. And I just don't see a lot of hope for the future that he's going to rise back up. I love JD. He's somebody that obviously broke out with Detroit, which made me an instant fan. I'll be rooting for him, but it'll be on somebody else's team. I don't, even with a sharp price change, I don't really see myself going for JD Martinez next year. So Yeah, definitely not necessarily looking his way. So there they are. There's the second half fall offs, some major ones, some medium ones, and some guys that we're not really worried about at all. And one other guy I wanted to mention real quick, because you did bring him up at first base. Andrew Vaughn almost made this list. He had a pretty big drop off himself. I wonder if that's going to give anybody pause, because he's been another guy that's been like, give us the breakout. You know, he's somebody who's a growth profile. And after the big first half, it looked like he was going to have the big breakout. Now you kind of compare this year to last year, wasn't as big of a jump for him. You still think people are going to be pretty interested in him next year as a 25-year-old for Andrew Vaughn?
I would think so, because I mean, you have to think Jose Abreu's gone, right? And and Vaughn can just play first base full time, and he's got the pedigree. I'm going to be in on Vaughn. I mean, obviously, I'm going to do a deeper dive and stuff, in the off season to kind of solidify that. But I mean, he's super young. There's a lot of talent in that bat. I think he's going to finally get to just play first base full time next year. He literally went to high school within walking distance of my house. There's just a lot. His dad works with my wife. Like, there's a lot of like connections for me personally. That means I'll be in on Andrew Vaughn.
Love it. I'm a big Andrew Vaughn fan as well. And even with the second half dip, I'm going to be in. In fact, again, people want to lower the price because of it, by all means. But I still really believe in him, and I think there's a 30-homer season in the future.
I think he's going to be a really polarizing player, because I think you're going to be people who want to buy like we do, and then there are going to be people who like, oh no, look what happened in the second half. He fell off. He finally got to play, and he fell off.
Yeah.
I'm
not going to be like, what are we buying? What's so special about this guy? I'm going to buy somebody that's showing the burgeoning power with the contact to be really, really strong with it. And he jumped the batting average up nearly 40 points this year from 235 to 273. That's the big difference for me with Vaughn. And
he's infield, outfield eligible. I love
Always
those guys.
Yes.
The CI outfield eligibility, in spite of the way those White Sox performed this year, I think back healthy next year, the White Sox are the best team in that division. Just give me a piece in the middle of that lineup like Vaughn. I'm totally fine.
Love Andrew Vaughn. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We will be back on Friday, either doing pitcher version of this or picking up what we were supposed to do last Friday, and then pushing the pitcher version of fall offs to later. But Justin, hope you have a good one. It's great talking with you, and good luck finishing out these last couple of days. I cannot wait for the playoffs, and we'll talk some playoffs on Friday for sure too.
Yeah, it's going to be such a fun playoff year. I know a lot of people are anti expanded playoffs. I'm here for I'm all for it. I'm
definitely here for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be fun.
World Series at FPAS. If you have not, we're supposed to have in Game 5 or something like that. Game 4 and 5 at FPAS. So if you're on the fence, come watch the World Series with Paul and I.
Telling you, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll be there in a month. By the way, that's gonna be coming up so quick. I wouldn't even believe.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be a blast. So, all right, I'll talk to you on Friday.
Take it easy.